spoken a lot this morning, into the afternoon, about the complexities of AI and how FM are going to adapt. Steve McGregor is going to come on stage now from DMA, the award-winning DMA.
Highly commended.
Highly commended, yeah. Nearly award-winning. And he's going to talk about, actually, can AI cope with the complexities of FM? So he's going to flip on its head.
Do you mind if I put that there?
Yeah, sure.
Just in case another photograph is taken as a brand there. Hi, I'm Steve McGregor. I press the button. I'm the executive chairman of the now highly commended DMA group. And we're very proud, so thank you very much to the judges. DMA is a 222-year-old service company specialising in M&E maintenance, projects and energy services. And I've been asked today to consider whether AI is ready for the complexity of FM. So where's Bhaskar? Is he still here? We're an unashamed doer. So I thought I'd remind those of us that are not involved in delivery in the room just what it means to actually deliver FM well. So those of us who've been doing it for a while know that navigating that path for effective and efficient and compliant delivery of FM takes a lot of skill, a lot of experience, a lot of dedicated people out in the field, whether they be cleaners or, in our instance, engineers or people back at the ranch that are planning and playing that speed chess that moves our resources around to where they're needed. So start with the people. Our industry sets probably 3.5 and 4 million people to work every day, making sure they get to work safely and get home safely, making sure they have the right skills, qualifications, tools, equipment, they're at the right building at the right time, they've got access arranged, and they can do what our customers have paid us to do. Not only that, we've got the added challenge of a huge skill gap in the UK. So attracting and retaining the talent means that we need to differentiate ourselves as providers as well. And we're an SME, £20 million a year company, but we have to do an awful lot to attract people to our business. Now I turn to the property, understanding all of the different types of property that customers occupy. We've got some cherished customers with us from the education sector and from commercial offices in London, and understanding those user needs is really important. And Bhaskar mentioned again this morning that very often we follow 5, 6, 7 providers before us, and we never get a bloody accurate asset register. Never, or should I say rarely. It's absolutely critical to us as M&E providers that we get accurate data if you want us to look after the assets that make your buildings operate effectively. And it really is, I think, a travesty that we don't get that element of the data absolutely right. And we've spent an awful lot of time, actually automating the business that we run. And having that base data at the very start is absolutely critical, as I mentioned. So now I turn to technology. In the 4.5 decades that I've been involved in this sector now, I've seen the progressive... You looked at me like that, Simone. I've seen the progressive march of technology. And when I started in the industry, well before it was called FM, I was working with the Navy in Chatham Naval Base, and we used to send naval assets to sea and to war based on manual T-card systems. And they worked very effectively. Everyone knew how they worked. We then moved towards desktop green screen technology with floppy disks. And wow, did we get excited. But it didn't last long. Excel took the spot. And there's still probably something like 1 billion Excel users across the UK. And probably 70% of building owners in the UK still use Excel to manage their properties. So we've seen that progressive activity from simple technology, from manual, straight the way through, and I've seen all of the iterations of CAFM, and we as a business have used CAFM systems for 25, 30 years. And of course the activity around today was really looking at how AI could influence what we do, make us better, and more importantly, deliver better service, continuous improvement to our customers. So I think this probably, from a doer's perspective, just makes it absolutely clear that there's still a lot of stuff out there that is a long way away from the AI that most of us have been talking about today. So if it isn't interpretable to the people at the coalface, and it doesn't make a difference to our customers, then we really ought to be challenging ourselves why we're doing it. There was an inference in the question that I was asked to respond to about whether AI was ready for the complexities of FM. So I thought I'd have a look around other sectors and just see what other industries were doing with AI. Nuclear engineering, I think we'd probably all agree that's pretty clever stuff. Whether it be defending the nation with our atomic deterrent, or whether it be power stations and small power stations that are coming along the way. But AI is being used to help predict component failure. It's helping to predict and optimize the performance of the reactors. It's helping to identify hazards, whether that be safety or operation. So a pretty complex industry that's actually got its head around how it could use AI to benefit its outcomes. Forensic accounting, for the accountants in the room, and I certainly know there's one of them. There's lots of data in accounting, and the research that I've done around this in how AI is used in that regard is that finance has a myriad of data, and AI is helping forensic accountants to spot risks, to spot illegal or fraudulent activity, and is actually using NLP to spot communication between parties that might infer some of that illegal or fraudulent activity. So another complex environment that's using AI. Healthcare. Healthcare is using AI for automated medical diagnoses. I found that quite astonishing, to be honest. So it's difficult enough to see a doctor, so I've signed up already. So they're being used for clinical trials, for the identification and the development of drugs. So again, another particularly complex environment in which AI is being used. And finally, and most surprising to me, was air traffic control. So I don't know if any of you know that AI is actually being piloted at Heathrow Airport, affectionately known as Amy, and it is helping the air traffic controllers, the individual air traffic controllers, to more effectively manage 500,000 flights a year, or 90 flights an hour taking off and landing. And it's merging long distance and close distance radar and 3D imaging to present visualizations to air traffic controllers to help them to do their job more effectively. So I think we can safely say here that there are other equally complex, at least, sectors that are effectively using AI. So I think the question we should be asking ourselves is, are we ready for AI? And I think that's the more pertinent question here, and I think that's probably been resonated with some of the previous presentations. So just to reinforce, it isn't new. Artificial intelligence was first pioneered, probably considered the grandfather of AI, is Alan Turing. Alan Turing, if you don't know or haven't remembered, was the guy that cracked the Enigma code during World War II at Bletchley Park. So 1947 to 1950, he developed something called the Turing test. And the Turing test enabled us to measure the human-like artificial intelligence of machines and computers. So it's been around a long while. From my lay application perspective, I see that this really is only a simulation of us. AI is incapable of creative or original thought, and I think I'm just reinforcing some of what's been said. I know when I show my mum some of what I can do on ChatGPT, which makes me feel very good, she says, "Oh, that's clever, son." But we all know it ain't clever, it's just very, very quick. So just to give you an idea of quick, the neurons in our brains operate at around about 250 mile an hour. Mine's probably about 150, but anyway. So AI operates 125,000 times quicker than the neurons in our brain. So that reinforces Andy's point about how quickly we actually goes out. So when you use the open source AI platforms, which I'll talk about in a tick, you ask a question, you get a response back. The closer prescriptive the question is, the closer prescriptive the answer. But all it's doing at light speed virtually is going out, scanning the publicly available website, and coming back with that large language predictive generative text that gives you an answer to what you've asked. All pretty clever stuff. Now, it's really good at analysing high volumes of data, and the 30-odd years that you identified, Andy, to address what I can't remember, but I know it was a pretty impressive statistic nevertheless, is it's really good at analysing large data sets, spotting trends, solving problems. And if there was any doubt about the potential value of AI, there's some big money behind it now. In 2023, £130 billion was spent in the infrastructure around AI and the development of the platforms. The race is on. That number is going to pale into insignificance over the next sort of 3 to 5 years. Some of you would have heard that, obviously, well, seen. We've got countries and governments, the UK, our own UK government is stepping up to be an AI super provider with data centres and creating a fertile environment for private sector companies to invest £14 billion into the UK to be a force behind AI. We've seen Meta recently. The Meta is the owner of Google, committing $65 billion of infrastructure improvements. We've seen the infamous Elon Musk making approaches to ChatGPT that he was a founder of, which I never knew until the publication all broke, that values that business at $100 billion a year. So there's huge sums of money going into this, and I think we have to be careful that we don't end up with the emperor's new clothes here. We have to really make sure that when we use AI in FM and in our businesses and everyday lives, it actually sources what we need. The one thing that AI needs to operate effectively, and you've heard it from other presenters, is lots of high-quality data. And the growth of data over the last 15 years has been huge. But in the last 5 particularly, it's been a massive increase in the level of data collected in, another new word for me, the data sphere. But there we go, 175 zettabytes. Quick show of hands, had anybody ever heard of a zettabyte before? No, I certainly hadn't. And I'd never seen so many noughts since I saw David's salary check, but there we go. So it's 1 million gigabytes. And each gigabyte has the ability to store 600 high-quality photographs. So we can see where the data is driving us, and we need it to be high quality. And it's clear now that data is being referenced as the new gold. It has to be found, and in our industry, it has to be captured. It has to be mined, and it has to be refined if it's going to add value to what we do, because we need to make absolutely certain that we get insights from that data, actionable insights that make it possible for us to really use it in an effective way that impacts what we do right the way down at the grassroots level. So that's kind of the big picture. So I mentioned that I talk about some of the open source platforms. And I'm sure if we'd have asked people in the room last year or maybe the year before, there'd have been nowhere near the same level of use of those open source platforms as there is now. I think probably most of us in the room are using ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity. And from my perspective, there's probably 2 ways to use these. You simply ask a question, as I mentioned earlier, and it comes back with an answer. Or you can put your own data, you can export your own data into one of those platforms and then ask very prescriptive questions. And it will drive out pretty decent visualizations, pie charts, graphs, and all that good of stuff. But I think there's a real word of caution here. This is an open public platform, so I think we all need to be asking ourselves, are we really sure about the IPR that we're putting on these systems when we're asking them to do things on our behalf? So this moves us now to what I consider to be the most valuable form of AI when you're ready, and that's when it's embedded. And there's 2 versions of embedded AI. One is in the products that you buy, whether it be HVAC equipment or simple phones. Simple. But that's actually embedded into the product. The other version of embedded is really challenging how we do and why we do the things we do. And we as an organisation, DMA, we're an SME, we've spent the last 8 years getting ready for this next iteration of AI. And if I look back with that experience under our belts now, we might have been able to knock 18 months, possibly 2 years off of that, but this is not a quick fix. It meant that we had to go back. We were doers, and we thought we understood how our business operated. But in order for us to make that transition, we had to engage everyone across the business. Whether they were engineers, planners, the finance team, everyone has had their fingerprint on how our bio service management platform was developed. 8 years, I hear you ask. Bloody hell, that's a long time. Was it worth it? Absolutely. It's doubled the efficiency of our business in that time. It's eliminated over 10,000 hours of unproductive time. And this was all lost time, from things like engineers having to ring up for a purchase order or having to fill out timesheets, all of which have been fundamentally automated now. So all of our back-of-house processes, all of the key processes that we have to operate our business have now been automated. And this has made a massive difference to us. Now, what we really did before we got involved in how we spent the money, and I mentioned it earlier in one of the questions that we had, that however much budget you put aside and however long you think this is going to take, you're going to need more money and it's going to take more time than you think. That's just a reality. It's like changing an ERP system in that regard. But we really had a very clear view of what the problems were. Our simple purpose was to make buildings work better. And in the environment that we operate in, we've heard a number of people say today, we've got perilously low margins. So we took the decision that if we were going to invest in AI, it couldn't be cosmetic, or automation of our processes, it couldn't be cosmetic. It had to make a real difference to us as a business because we couldn't afford to get it wrong. Equally, the industry has told us for years that our customers are not completely satisfied with what we've done in maintenance. So I, for one, this morning wasn't surprised at all that maintenance rose to the top in terms of people's suggestions for improvement. So that was our mantra. That was our problem statement, I think I heard someone say earlier today. So we really understood what we were doing and why. And that really made a difference to our business. Fundamentally about data, I've heard a couple of questions today about ownership and accountability and access to data. Our CTO, a particularly gifted CTO, Andy, came into our business from outside the sector. He came from finance sector, so knew nothing about FM per se. But for the first year of his architectural development of the platform, it was all about data collection, actually enabling us to be able to collect all of the data, much of which at that time we weren't ready to use. But progressively, we've been munching away at that data because it's been making a difference to us and our customers. So we really understood what problems we were trying to solve and why we were trying to solve them and how it would manifest itself to our people and to our customers. So, something completely different now. There's been a little bit of talk today. You could probably have a completely separate conference about the ethics of AI. And I don't want to add to that because I probably don't want to know enough, and I'm too excited about what it can do for us, if I'm honest. So forgive me for that. But it's also been leveraged about the impact at work and maybe the loss of jobs. So the graph that's on the screen at the moment is a combination of two key reports, one from the OECD and one from McKinsey. The top black bold line is the growth of the population globally, which is now approaching sort of 9 billion. Conversely, and worryingly, the birth rate has fallen below 1. So if I consider my granddad and my great-granddad, when they were at work, there was 5 people working to support every retiree. This statistic now is telling us that in 25, 30 years' time, it will be 1 for 1. So this is not about losing jobs. This is about how we actually get fewer people to do more. This is a massive demographic shift, and it will upturn and upend the economic models that most of the first world economies have leveraged for Lord knows how long. So So what this actually means is that over the next 25 to 30 years, and the UK is included in this, we've got to double, if not treble, our productivity just to actually maintain what we're used to doing now. Now, of course, I believe that technology is an answer to this for sure. It's not the answer, because I think all of us are getting used to the fact that we've got to work longer before we retire, and that's just a brutal reality. We have an added problem in the UK because the Office of National Statistics has just confirmed that we've got a productivity crisis in the UK. So since the 2008 financial crash, productivity has flatlined at best. So we've got an added problem, and considering that we've got 3.5, 4 million people set to work, as I mentioned just now, every day in FM, this is going to have a large impact on us. So I think certainly that technology is a significant contributor to how we battle with that very difficult challenge. So, before conference, we asked the industry, and hopefully some of you in the room today, to respond to a survey about AI, and David and IFM team supported us in getting that out. And I'd just like to sort of feedback some of those elements back to you, if you like. So it's clear, and we've probably heard that in the room, and you can feel the vibe, that there's a growing interest in AI, but there's also caution for a number of reasons that I won't repeat. Investment-wise, 2/3 of you confirmed that you've actually got budgets for this year for AI. What about the current AI usage? So you were really honest that equally 2/3 of you are not using AI at all. And I don't think there's anything to be embarrassed about there, because there's nothing in the industry that's plug and play. This is hard work. Of course, you can use the open source platforms and ask your questions like Billio, but does it really give you differentiatable change? Does it challenge what you do? Does it add value? And I would challenge probably not. The key barriers to adoption have been the business case, weighing up the pros and cons, the benefits versus the challenges, but also access, and we've heard some of the speakers earlier today mention training. And getting access to the right level of skills to make AI work. So future priorities. So most of you that responded confirmed that where you had been using AI, it was more towards the, I'm going to say simplistic, but the more straightforward administrative functions. And that's a great start. Our mantra was think big, act small, fail fast. So if this stuff doesn't work, change it and refine it and redefine it. So the fact now is that you were identifying that your future focus was on the real heavy lifting. How you're going to optimize your workforces, how you're going to automate your processes, and take a deep breath, because, like I said, this is not a short fix. There's hard work involved in this. And from a personal perspective, as I say, having been involved in the industry for 46 years, most of the discomfort that I've felt is I've had to unlearn the things that I took for granted for years. I've had to unlearn to recognize, not every case, but there are different ways of doing things. And if you don't open these and open those and shut that, very often you don't get that feedback. So I think it's quite clear that we're an industry in transition. AI presents a huge opportunity for not just FM, but for all of us in our daily lives as well. So I'd just like to put that up on the screen while I finish off. So any of you who are interested in picking up the white paper, it'll give you all the detail on the survey that we conducted, then please do. So I would just like to give you one parting thought about AI, and that's get back to basics first. Thank you very much.